Welcome to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset, the leading data and analytics company for the cannabis industry.
Welcome back to the High Rise, a laid-back, data-back conversation where we talk all things cannabis from U.S. MSOs to Canadian LPs, products and market analysis through the lens of data. My name is Cy Scott with Headset, and I'm joined as always by Emily Paxia of Poseidon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the High Rise.
And as you can tell by the background noise, we are at a very special poolside session here in Miami at the Benzinga Conference with a very special guest, Brady Cobb, CEO and founder of Sunburn. Thanks for joining us again, Brady.
No, thanks for having me. Always a good time. And this is one of the most unique places to have an interview right at the Fontainebleau Pool. So kudos to you guys for not doing it in a conference room inside.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
There are worse places.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I know you've been on the podcast before, but this is your first poolside, I think.
Correct. This is the first poolside, and it's the first, I can't believe this Benzinga Conference, to see how it's grown. I mean, I think it was like 1,500 people here to this time. My last time, it felt like there was a couple hundred. So this has been a cool couple of days.
Yeah, 1,500, and we were just talking with Carson about this, that it's 1,500 and it's very concentrated and it's a lot of leadership. So there's a lot of really good people to get the time in with here, a lot of good conversations going on, and it's pretty compact.
It's intimate. It's not like MJ Biz where you're kind of running around from hotel suite to hotel suite or that conference floor with 30,000 exhibitors. This is intimate, and the quality of people. Someone that, Emily, you're a trailblazer. I consider myself as someone that was an early person in the space, and those early days were marked by a lot of Bay Street people, a lot of prospectors, a lot of interesting characters, I think I'll be polite and say, to now see guys like Ricky Sandler walking around this conference, to see some of the Wall Street guys walking around and gals walking around, to see Jason Wild up there, CNBC, Irwin Simon we heard from. We had an interesting dinner with him last night.
Yes.
So to see people like that at these things now tells me that as much pain as we're feeling in the markets on a day-to-day basis because of how inefficient they are, the quality of humans is rising tremendously.
Yeah, and I think it's still an industry where we like to do business face-to-face because it's so much work and there's a lot of things that get done in that. And I would love to hear your thought on this too. Someone last night, I met a new person to the industry, which I love.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he is like a tech veteran, a very successful human. He's very excited. He just got into this 60 days ago. And
wow.
He looked a pretty, I have to say, I saw him at one of the parties last night, and he was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of things to know and learn, and he's really getting excited about it. Because for him, having been in the tech sector that long and having run successful businesses, so he's asking me, he was like, so this event is at the Fontainebleau. Like, this is a place I've come to for traditional finance conferences, hedge fund conferences. It's a fabulous resort. It's, what it is. And he was like, what was it like when you first got into it? I was like, airport hotel basement conference room. So I was like,
Stardust hallway.
Yes.
The old school.
Yeah. So I mean, you've been in it since before 2011. So
yeah, I mean, we went to the first MJ Biz, and it was at the Rio, I think, for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And stained carpets, just real dark, real dreary. I mean, now that the scale of that is massive, and then you have all of these, like this Benzinga here and plenty of others that I think are well attended, and it's come a long way. It really has. And
come a long way,
baby. I
baby.
feel like it's still early innings, right?
Oh, we're second inning in my book.
Yeah. So I can only imagine 10 years from now what it's going to look like.
My sincere hope is by the time that happens, I am out.
Me too.
Okay,
I want to be the people vacation. Well,
we're the ones.
I won't be
I come
vacationing
here.
here.
No, I was
I'll
like,
fly over here. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
I was
flying
like-
over here due east.
Yeah.
if this all works out, I'm not vacationing here, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm with you. For me, it's
I'll
like
see you in St. Bart's.
done, sold, signed, delivered. I'm in.
Okay.
We're the ones running into our cars in the 7th inning stretch right at by the time we get there.
Yes.
Maybe 7th inning is too far already. If we're at second, maybe we're thinking
Five.
Five, okay.
Top
okay.
of 5, change pitchers.
There you go.
Do the old signal to the dugout. I'm out.
That's
out.
it. We're
We
out of
got
the
it.
ballpark.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, let's talk about
New Jersey. Yeah. So
Big news.
it's 421 and today's the day. I mean, it was 18 months in the making, right? It's crazy. I can't imagine being in those operators' shoes there. And then they had weeks to get this thing ready to go. So what are you expecting, Brady?
I expect you're going to see some pretty big numbers trailing coming out of there. I think they're going to be the market. I remember looking at a Jersey deal way back when, probably 2017, and it had one of the border stores where you could see the Freedom Tower.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sat there and thought to myself, like, I can't imagine when you could take a train over here, load up, and go back into the city. The local plugs in New York City are going to be pretty pissed off. I think the numbers are going to be astounding. I think those with border stores, that kid's not so excited about it. But
Kid's having a bad day.
I think it's going to be massive, but on a kind of political basis, it's a big domino to fall.
Mm-hmm.
Another East Coast state falls in that tightly condensed kind of map up there from a political standpoint. It's a big one to fall. And I think it's telling for what's coming. You now have Jersey beating out New York and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is obviously going to have to follow.
Yep.
I got a lot of family in that region. I mean, they're driving across the bridge back and forth all the time. You're now going to see, okay, what's the next domino to fall? And as those states continue to go wreck, it's additional pressure in Washington. And you'll never convince me. I'm a serial optimist, but you'll never convince me that Booker didn't delay things and have certain things delayed to line up with broader goals in Washington. So this whole New York rollout and first 100 licenses to people with cannabis convictions, social equity licenses, I don't think that happens unless they know safe banking's coming, because where they put a $200 million trust fund together to fund them, where those people are going to open bank accounts.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of stuff. I look for signals, not signs. As I'm looking at those, New Jersey falling is huge for TerrAscend, for Verano, for Curaleaf, but it's also big for our broader movement and reform, because you now have a major U.S. East Coast state falling that borders arguably one of the biggest states and biggest cities in the world. It's a big day, and I'm excited to see the numbers coming out of there. I think for TerrAscend, it could prove to be a really big move for them.
Yeah, I think it's huge for them. And, Morgan and I were talking to some analysts this morning, and a lot of the companies had kind of hedged and moved it to July because they were so worried about the pace of improvements going on in New Jersey and the rollout of this. But kind of middle case was mid-May. And then we moved it all the way forward to 4/21. So it's like I said, it's like you found change in the couch.
Yes.
It's great. And but the other side to that is that, there was a lot of talk about supply for the market to be able to continue to supply medical patients. These guys were on the brink of having to destroy inventory.
Oh, yeah.
So this actually creates a lot of opening and breathing room so they can continue to build inventory as the market continues and get us going into the rest of the year. So I actually think it has an exponential improvement to where we thought we were going. Yeah.
I definitely,
it was concerning.
It's a catalyst for sure. And I think you've got to also look at, this is also going to be an interesting mirror moment for the big MSOs that are active in New Jersey, because we're going to see who can scale and who can't. And I think you're also going to see, I know you're data, I'm a data geek too. As I've studied markets that have made that pivot, we've been doing a turnaround as a group in consulting work in Arizona. And we chose to go do something in Arizona because it was a market that recently made that switch from medical to adult use.
Yep.
And as we studied the data and we've been out there doing the SWOTs and looking at it, what we've identified is the best equipped groups to survive in that switch, have good cultivation and or wholesale access, have brand recognition, but the two most important things, well-located stores with ample parking.
Yep.
And we're going to see that play out in New Jersey now, because if you're in an inline shopping center with 4 parking stalls, it's going to be awfully hard. You start looking at some of the numbers that go through an adult use dispensary. In Illinois, adult use dispensaries on a Friday, they're doing 700-800 tickets.
Yeah.
Abbott Kinney MedMen store is doing 850-900 tickets.
Right.
So the only way you can do that is you got to be able to, now you're in a logistics game. How you turning people through the store it's going to be really interesting to see that play out with the pressure from Pennsylvania and New York consumers coming across the border.
I think about that, and then I also think about, and we talk a lot about basket size too, and retention of basket size, and you notice too in the data the way that the baskets start to vary in terms of the pricing of the individual products. But yeah, I think about the location and how it can drive the bigger basket sizes depending on not just where it's located, ease of parking, because I agree with you on 100% of that, but also on the surrounding areas.
Demographics.
Exactly.
Household incomes, demographics. Yeah. It's really compelling story. I think it's going to be fun. As a data geek, I'm really excited to watch, to kind of see in earnings, and we can do our earnings podcast again. I'm excited to see in earnings kind of how the first wave comes through, what stores win, what stores don't.
Yep.
Because again, basket size can get crushed in a rec market. If someone comes in and buys 2 joints,
right,
you're dragging your basket size the wrong direction really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think initially it'll be really high, and then because people are stocking up, first time shopping, maybe purchasing for others as they wait in line. But yeah, it'll start to get compressed over time. But yeah, I'm really excited to watch the whole thing unfold here and see, how this plays out. Every new market is so exciting to see. So the data, we're getting it today already, and
Awesome.
we'll start looking at it and start publishing what we can, and I think drive some insights there. So yeah, big day. But we're here in Florida.
We are in Florida.
I do want to talk about Florida because this is your home state, Brady.
Yep.
And this is where, you ran a large business, one plant here for a long time, and now moving on to the next thing, which we'll get to. But let's talk about the market a little bit. Well, it's like 700,000 patients here. It's a medical market, 22 million residents. How do you feel about that patient count? I know it's growing and it continues to grow. Like what kind of catalyst do you see to see continued growth? Is it going to grow forever? Like at what point do you think it'll kind of like taper, on the medical side?
Well, what I think you saw it pull back a little bit. We had, like a lot of other states, we had a rapid growth rate during COVID that kind of backed down a little bit. What we do see, though, is it's kind of coming back a little bit because I'll give kudos to Chris Ferguson, who's the director of our regulatory body, Office of Medical Marijuana Use. He now has the turnaround time for a card down to 1 day.
Oh, wow.
So we were just down in Key West looking at one of the stores that we're acquiring, and there's a Miracle Leaf clinic right next door. And they said people can come in the morning, submit their card application, and by the afternoon, they're able to come back up and pick their card and go purchase. So that has streamlined the process. It's gotten a little bit easier. It's digital now. You don't have to mail things back and forth. So he's optimized it. He comes from a big healthcare regulatory background. So he brought in a lot of just things natural, systems, processes, procedures. So it's gotten better. What I think you got to look at Florida, though, I haven't looked at the most recent data, but as of, Florida's been consistently in kind of the top 5 total sales.
Right.
With only 700,000 patients.
Right.
Instead of states above them having millions of available consumers in an adult use market.
Right.
So there's a demand here. Florida has a huge demand for cannabis. It's been a cannabis. A lot of the buildings you see in downtown Miami were financed in the early cannabis days. This is cannabis or cocaine.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the demand is here. I think from a demographic standpoint, it's the best market in the country. And I'm biased. I live here. I'm born here, but you look at it, 22 licenses, even if they increase it by 19, we're still well below our bigger peers, which Colorado, 6,000 licenses, California close to 12. So from a limited license standpoint, it's set up very nicely. But we had 118 million annual visitors over the age of 21 last year. And the potential for an adult use market here
is massive.
You need a bigger boat, like the saying in Jaws. So for us, we're staring at that moment as we ran. We chose to come back in specifically as a single state operator, as a team, in Florida, recognizing that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we're like you in data. We run a SWOT analysis every week. It's around 215 pages. We do it in Florida, we do it in Arizona, we do it in California, and we do it in Illinois. And what we've seen in Florida is the market's so concentrated on low cost and medicinal feel, kind of pharmaceutical feel.
Mm-hmm.
No one's playing in high quality, kind of more adult use leaning. So we're skating to that white space. And that's what kind of drew us back into the state, because everybody, the Cure Leaf, True Leaf, and Kim Rivers with her massive head start, and she's executed on her head start. She's crushing it with a 47 share. They're all fighting for that same low-cost business. We're going after the top end. But the market, I think you see data out of here. I mean, the basket sizes are great.
Right.
The consumer base is loyal. They all want to be a part of it. Patient growth is around 2% month over month, and it fell behind Arizona, but it's coming back a little bit. We're all playing for adult use in 2024, though.
That's right. And I think about, another shift of the pandemic. Obviously, consumer behavior shifted, but also where people lived shifted. And so when I'm, for example, vetting opportunities in California, I'm looking at the jurisdictions that are expanding, not shrinking. And so there's an interesting phenomenon in towns like San Luis Obispo or even Santa Barbara County. Like, it's just really interesting to see where people are spreading out to. And Florida has certainly benefited from the tax beneficial structure here. So as a California resident who can't keep her head above water at some points with the taxes there, I think about it all the time. But it is a place that's attracting, more people, frankly, with disposable incomes.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting shift. Are you seeing, I mean, I know the Miami area. I mean, you were talking 118 million visitors. I feel like that's what's at this hotel right now this weekend. But like, what about other areas of the state? I've also heard Tampa's and like Clearwater areas seeing some expansion in population.
Orlando's huge.
So
the greater Orlando, Kissimmee, Orange County, Osceola County is massive. But Jacksonville is a big benefactor too. Jacksonville has exploded.
Yeah.
And it's because South Florida, a lot of people are priced out of South Florida right now.
It is pricey.
Our real estate market down here is the craziest I've ever seen it in my life.
Yeah.
It's you put your house up for sale, you have 3 over ask bids within the first day, and they're all cash. So,
amazing.
I mean, South Florida stuff's trading at $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 a foot, and you can't even keep up. Jacksonville, for the more middle class, it's more approachable, you know, 400, 500,000 in some of the rural areas that they're building new stuff. But the state's growth is just, to your point, you know, everyone hated Ron DeSantis and his policies until they didn't. It's not a indictment or a endorsement of him either way.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the guy, he and his staff have kind of withstood the COVID, and people sat and watched everybody in Florida on Instagram riding around in their boats while they were locked down and went, okay, enough of this, I'm going there. And the amount of people I know from California and or the kind of tri-state area in New York that have relocated here, it's astounding. And as someone that's getting ready to launch a cannabis business again here, I'm cheerleading him, going, keep it going, keep them coming. I don't like the traffic.
Oh my God.
I mean, it took me 25 minutes to go 15 blocks to get to dinner last night.
Yeah.
But, you know, from a metric standpoint, data standpoint, that's the reason that we decided we had opportunities to go take over MSOs, to go put together 2 or 3 assets to create a little baby MSO. And we said, no, we're doing Florida because the opportunity here is so big right now. And a lot of the MSOs have it as part of their plan, but they're not focused on it. And they don't realize that this can be a market where you can generate EBITDA that, you know, you could generate revenue and EBITDA similar to Tilray's global business here.
Right.
Kim Rivers has done it for the last 5 years.
She's crushed it.
She built her business here.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, I think about something we did talk about is that people don't understand how difficult it can be to cultivate in a region like Florida where there's humidity through the roof. I mean, I'm having a terrible hair day. And I think if my hair's bad, it means it must be hard to grow cannabis if you're not paying attention to the climate control. So would you talk a little bit about that? Because, you know, we've talked about Mac 1 before as Brady has introduced it to us. It's one of my favorite products these days. But will you share a little bit about your, because I don't think it is a market you can walk into and grow and have great success. I think you could see a massive wipeout of product as you're taking it through the final stages.
100%. And it's largely kind of one of the things I think that's a problem with a lot of the MSOs. They got so big so fast that it became kind of, as they're all public, beholden to earnings reports. So you can't really slow down and do things the right way. It gets a scale, start selling product, hit your numbers. Otherwise, share price. Otherwise, I don't know why they're so worried about the share price, because even if you post good numbers, you get sold off with our buddies in Canada. But that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
But in Florida, you've got one of the hardest environments to cultivate premium cannabis. You have days when it can go from 60 degrees in the morning to 90 degrees in the afternoon and back down to 60 at night. That temperature swing is completely destructive to cannabis if you want to do anything you're going to sell as flower, premium flower.
Yeah.
So unless you build a facility the right way, over-engineered for HVAC and dehumidification, you're going to have problems in the shoulder seasons. You may be able to skate through it in the winter months, our winter, which is not really a winter, but where it's a little bit more temperate. But in the March, April, May, September, October, November shoulder seasons, when these fronts come through where they don't always make it, you'll destroy an entire room. And you've seen if you go back and look at when crop recalls and product recalls have happened in Florida, they're in those shoulder months, and they're primarily from companies that have facilities that are old Gen 1 tomato greenhouses that they've just tried to retrofit, or they're indoor facilities that are vastly under AC'd and under dehumidified. It'll crush you. You're done. You can't sell it as flower, and then you're getting the discount game. And from a brand standpoint, once you start selling stuff at a discount, now you are a discount brand.
Yes.
Boris Jordan made a big jump in market share. I study his market share in Florida when he went in 2021, stole like 15 points off Kim, but it cost him 6 points in his entire company's margin because he was selling $15 Ace just to try to beat out Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that she's got 1 million square feet of hoop house biomass that costs her less than 30 cents a gram to cultivate. And she'll come on, hit me all day. I've got 110 stores, you've got 35. So if you've got that low cost, if you don't invest in your facilities, you don't invest in your genetics, and you don't give your team the ability to do it the right way, you're going to have mids or worse, and you're going to have to price it accordingly. And that's just, it's not like a talent issue. It's an environmental issue. You just can't, there's no shortcuts in a market like this. It's not growing in Santa Rosa where you're 70 degrees, kind of nice and smooth most of the year. It's not growing in the Central Valley where it's nice. It's summertime. It is 80 in the morning, 105 in the middle of the day with 50%, 60% humidity, and it's back down to 80 at night. That 20-degree temperature swing causes the flower to perspire. When it perspires, powdery mildew, mold, and you're done. And for a while, the state didn't test for that. Now they test for it.
Well, that's good. I'm happy for the consumers that they're testing.
You know, Seed Junkie is probably one of the most well-known genetics houses. I'm a huge fan of Jay Beasy and Seed Junkie. They partner with Liberty Health Sciences. Liberty Health had a Gen 1 grow that was not properly HVAC. They dropped a huge batch of apple fritter, one of their premier strains, on the market in Florida, and it all had to be recalled.
Ooh.
Wow.
That is brutal.
Yeah. So it's a tough place to do it, and that's where you can't run an out-of-state playbook in Florida.
Right.
You need to, and I give Ben Cobbler, by the way, a big shout out. I told him this when we were hanging out in Aspen last summer. I give him a big shout out because he was smart enough to see that, and he bought his license here, but he didn't deploy his capital here. He recognized that unless he had a Florida team with Florida solutions, he went and deployed his capital where he knew Illinois, Pennsylvania, and the Northeast states, where he knew he had a team up there.
Yeah.
And they haven't scaled in Florida. And some people knock him for not scaling in Florida. As an investor, I give him a biggest high five every time I see him, because I said the road to Florida is littered with dead bodies of people that came down here and blew money thinking they could run a Chicago or out-of-state playbook here, and they flop because they're throwing money into a buzzsaw against Kim Rivers trying to play a discount game. You're not going to win.
Yeah.
And so to that point, you're coming back to Florida with your new brand, Sunburn.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the name of the we're buying MedMen Florida. We press released it, or MedMen press released it a couple months ago. They were running a California playbook in Florida. It didn't work so well. We're buying but the one thing they did amazingly well is, just like California, they have the best store locations. Standalone buildings with ample parking and prime locations with demographics and household incomes, everything we just talked about. So when we looked at the opportunity, it was, you kind of know when you know. We saw the opportunity. They had existing cultivation, but they were grossly underutilizing it. So it's a matter of us going in there and cleaning it up. But we're excited we're going to operate as MedMen for probably about a year while we get the new grow built. We're going to go build 100,000 square feet of proper indoor. We already got the team. We're already funding the construction of the new indoor. We're retrofitting their grow right now before we even close. We're in there actually changing harvest cycles, changing harvest schedules. We're already seeing over the last 4 weeks, we've been in there for about 55, 60 days. Over the last 4 weeks, OMMU report comes out every week. We're already seeing we are increasing the ounces sold per store because we're putting more flower into stores. They don't have a customer problem. They have a product problem. They don't have any flower in their stores. So we're going to operate as them, and then we're going to pivot to a brand called Sunburn. The genesis of the name is my father, 1977, 1983. He was one of the biggest smugglers of cannabis in Florida's history. He was ultimately indicted by the Justice Department in a joint task force with the DEA, and the name of the task force to take him down was called Operation Sunburn. So it's our little tip of the hat and middle finger to the DEA, and it's a tip of the hat to every smuggler and kind of OG person. And we built the brand to be brutally authentic. So many people in cannabis are focused on thinking they have to re-educate the consumer on what cannabis is. And looking at data and also just knowing the street, people understand for the most part what the category is. It's been around for a long time. It's been making concerts better and in-laws tolerable at the holidays. It's been there. People understand it. They may need a new education into things, but you don't need to create a new wellness category, in my opinion. I'm happy that everybody's doing it. It's not for us. So we're going to go focus on being kind of an authentic brand. It's a Florida story. It all happened here, and have it really be, there's not a lot of authenticity in cannabis. I'll give Berner a lot of credit. And again, I'll give my friend Ben at GTI a lot of credit. I think those are probably the two most authentic stories, and we're stoked to go join them. And we're going to roll it out and be very loud. No one's going to miss that we're coming. So we're really excited.
I like it.
Love it. I'm excited to see it. Well, Brady, where can everyone find you online?
Instagram's at Surf and Esquire. The Sunburn website will get up here in a couple weeks, so we'll put a release out about that. And we're going to slowly start kind of curating the story. So we've got an entire drip campaign that will start later this year, kind of educating people on the story. You know, we're eventually going into a show production on kind of my dad's backstory, and then ultimately a docu-series that transitions to me. You know, dad goes to prison, son goes to law school, and then jumps into the cannabis industry as a lobbyist, trying to change the laws, and ultimately does it in his home state where his dad did it too. So we're really excited. Kept the whole team together. So all my management team that helped me build Bluma stayed with me, cultivators, everybody. So it's humbling to have that kind of support, and it's humbling to be able to come do this again in the state. And I'm happy to be here with you guys today to continue to talk about it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Get you guys some hats coming. The hats will be out in about a couple of weeks. I'll get a little box at the office.
All right.
And I need any excuse to get back to Florida here. This has been pretty nice.
Well, I want your help on data. Trust me.
Yeah, you got it.
Because we are data geeks.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Brady.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset. For more information on Headset, visit headset.io.